we'd like to take you through a little bit of the history of the people involved in this and the whole development of it, and share with you what we think is an extremely exciting opportunity. We had a brief meeting with the speaker a few minutes ago, and described this as Bombardier, something that was kind of risky to get involved in and try to do, but we were in the game, we were in the big deal type of game that we really aspire to be in as a state. You led with referencing your discussion last week of Smartport. I think that what you see in this concept is a similar approach, but what Kansas City has going in Smartport, if we could get the same thing going in the St. Louis region on air cargo to China, Missouri would really be taking advantage of its natural assets, of location, infrastructure development, and transportation systems as a transportation hub, a distribution hub for the U.S. and North America, and also beyond.
I think it was maybe 4 years ago, I was sitting with a client, and some of you may be aware of this. There's land around Lambert Airport that took about, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years to assemble. And it's a very large site. It's 400 to 600 acres. And there's a similar site on the west side of the airport, about 175 acres. And he was thinking, as he began to make the commitment to invest $100 million of infrastructure and site improvements, how he could accelerate the absorption of these large sites around the airport. So our minds turned to air traffic, of course, or lack thereof, and the land is suitable for distribution, for manufacturing, assemblage, etc. So you start thinking cargo, not necessarily passenger. And you start thinking, if you're an experienced developer, the challenges of attracting new business to Missouri, to St. Louis, to actually anywhere in the country are very challenging. And you're asked every day in appropriations to consider subsidies to either keep business or attract new business. And to me, it's always, if one can view it as just rearranging the deck chairs as we reach out to employers in other states. We had a different idea. We needed new net economic activity, or it'd take 20 years for that land to absorb, for new buildings to be on it, for businesses to be operating in it. So we started thinking about a outreach to a country, and I had something in mind because I knew somebody whose family had a 58-year history with China, and it's a special history. It's both a personal and business history, and it goes all the way back to the Cold War. Knowing that they had this relationship, I reached out to Stephen Perry and began to talk to them, not them, about a big idea. We coined it a big idea because it involved using Lambert Central location, Missouri Central location, and underutilized infrastructure at the airport as a basis for inducing the Chinese to make Lambert a base of operations for cargo activity.
When I first heard this idea from Steve and Stephen Perry and Paul McKee, my first comment to them was, get ready to take a long time to get this relationship established, because in Asia, and especially in China, before you can consider a business arrangement, you have to develop a personal relationship with the people that are with the government, the people that are with the businesses at an individual level. And so I saw this as a very long play, several years, 8, 10 years long. What we were able to do through the relationships that Stephen Perry had already established in China was to short-circuit that process. We were able to get to a place where we are 15 months into our initial outreach to the Chinese, and we have had meetings at the highest echelons of political leadership in China. As was mentioned, Ambassador Zhou has been to Missouri twice, Minister Li, and most importantly, Vice Premier Wang Xishan, who heads up economic efforts for China. He has been here, and when he was here, he made the point that China has well-established relationships on the East Coast and on the West Coast. If we're going to continue to expand our markets and economic capabilities, it's going to be in the Midwest. Now, let me be clear. This is not about, we're not here to grow jobs for the Chinese. We're not here to expand markets for the Chinese. What we're here to do through that effort is to grow jobs in Missouri. This is about improving the Midwest economy, but to do that, you've got to have trading partners. We chose China because of the relationship with Stephen Perry and because it's the fastest growing economy in the world.
Just scrolled down to an email I got, I'd be happy to share with any of you, from a company in Mansfield, Missouri at 1 o'clock today, out of the blue, unsolicited, saying, congratulating us on our efforts with this hub commission, and they do some business overseas, but the logistics, then they sell equipment that engraves concrete and so heavier type industry, and they encountered difficulty in getting to China and the logistics surrounding trying to do their trade or their exporting. And this is the kind of thing that I wanted to cite that we've encountered in our involvement in this. When you talk to a Chamber of Commerce or a Rotary or whoever it might be, or any group really, if you've got something of interest to them when people come up to you afterwards and want to talk to you about it or have questions. And this topic inevitably leads to a lot of people coming up to you and saying that either they've got a business interest involved in China, or they want to learn more about the opportunity, or they think we're dead on with it. It was a no-brainer for our board to agree to commit financially and our time and sweat to this effort. When I was approached, Jason and I have been talking about this for a while, but when I had lunch with Steve and Jason and Paul McKee, they're talking about the big idea, and Paul says, Dan, we need you to help make the backhaul work. We need you to fill the plane, because when the planes come over from China, they're full. Now, we've had a slowdown worldwide, so that's afflicting everyone, but when it was going at a normal pace, they're full coming over, and on the way back, they're 60 to 70% full going out of O'Hare. O'Hare doesn't have the same attributes that we have facing us at Lambert, with 2 runways that are virtually unused, the capacity, like Steve mentioned, surrounding the airport for infrastructure development, the transportation and rail lines going right past the airport. It's suited very well for it. The ace in the hole, as Steve said, and I don't think he said what I'm going to tell you, is Stephen Perry, who has these connections and these relationships that Jason alluded to take years to develop, and we've just cut years off this process. Stephen Perry is Steve Stone's cousin, so they don't want to mess up the family dinners. We're going to work well together. But when it was sitting at this first lunch, getting introduced to this idea, I said, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to try to create export markets for our members, selfishly, but for all the employers in Missouri, and frankly, for the Midwest region. I said, Paul, what are we going to put on that plane? And he said, strip steaks. Because strip steak in Shanghai, Hong Kong goes for $95 to $105 a pop. And that you just can't get them over there, and you can make this market a heck of a lot cheaper. But what that's indicative of is the fastest growing middle class ever known to mankind. And their tastes are changing. They're craving certain Western foods, clothes, ideas, know-how. We've been in touch with some companies that are talking about frozen pizza, that they are shipping frozen pizza to China, but it's those types of things that you don't think of every day as an export opportunity. But with Missouri's heavy emphasis on agribusiness, Missouri's producers are perfect for this idea. But it's